Over the past few years, Stranger Things has become Netflix's flagship series, and for good reason too. It's charming, has some incredible writing, and of course, brings in the big bucks for Netflix. However, in the pursuit of pushing Stranger Things to the top, it seems like Netflix has made a rather questionable decision. Let's dive right into it. First up, the cost of a single Stranger Things episode is insane. According to a report from Wall Street Journal, a single episode of the Stranger Things Season 4 cost $30 million to make. Yeah, you heard that right. $30 million for a single episode, not the entire season. If you're to add up the number for the whole 9-episode season, that would come out to around $270 million. That's pretty insane, right? Now, it is pretty normal for streaming services to splash out on their top franchises. We've seen Disney Plus do it for their Marvel and Star Wars shows for a couple of years now. However, sometimes you have to step back and figure out where they draw the line, because as good as it is, a show like Stranger Things having such a massive budget just doesn't make sense. Like, imagine just casually dropping $250 million on a TV show that doesn't even have many crazy visual effects. Don't get us wrong, we're not saying that it's an easy show to make by any stretch of the imagination, but when the majority of your show revolves around a bunch of teens running around in the 80s town fighting monsters, does it really have to be that expensive? It's not like we haven't seen good-looking CGI monsters in other cheaper shows. For instance, even Supernatural, a show that ran for 15 seasons, had decent-looking monsters, and for context, an entire season of that show cost as much as one episode of Stranger Things. How does the budget compare to other top shows? Of course, you can't see the full picture without contextualizing things. After all, the streaming wars have been heating up for the past few years, and the quality of shows these days is incredibly high. Not only that, but when you look at other streaming services like Disney Plus, their top shows almost rival their big budget movies in terms of quality. But you'd be surprised to find out that even with some incredible CGI and Marvel shows, they still somehow cost less than Stranger Things. For example, let's take Loki or The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Both of these shows have some of the best visual effects we've seen on any TV show and have really high-profile actors like Tom Hiddleston and Sebastian Stan. But a single episode of these shows costs around $35 million to make, which is still $5 million less than the Netflix show. And if you look at their own numbers, then things start to feel even more insane. For instance, remember Squid Game? The show that literally broke all viewership records for the streaming giant and almost guaranteed $1 billion in revenue for them? Guess how much that would have cost for a single episode? Well, the answer is only $2.4 million according to Bloomberg, which is not even a tenth of Stranger Things. Also, it's not like the show was always this expensive to make. Like during season 1, each episode had a budget around $7 million, and the funny thing is that a lot of people think that the show peaked during its first season. Why is Stranger Things Season 4 so expensive to make? All being said, it's not like Netflix is literally throwing money down the drain. They're still using it for the show, right? So where does all of that budget go? Well, if you thought that it was being used for some sick high-quality production, then we've got some bad news for you. You see, over the past few years, the kids in Stranger Things have become massive celebrities, and now stars like Millie Bobby Brown do not come cheap. So a big chunk of the budget is going towards them. And this is maybe the show's biggest pitfall, because even after all the fame, surely these actors aren't that big, right? We mean, if Disney's able to hire Pedro Pascal and Oscar Isaac actors who have starred in multiple hits for less money, aren't they getting a better deal? Besides, it's not like the Stranger Things actors have gone on to have a massively successful career out of the Netflix show yet. Next, there's still plenty to be excited about in season 4. Don't worry though, the whole story is not full of doom and gloom. We still expect the production quality of the show to be much higher than in previous seasons. In fact, according to the series creator Ross Duffer, the crew will spend a lot of time in the Upside Down world in season 4. Previously, we'd only seen glimpses and little snippets of these characters in the other dimension, so if we actually get a full campaign in the Dark Monster realm, then it would obviously have to look the part too. And it seems like that aspect of the Upside Down has been sorted too, because the show isn't actually going to use special effects for that dimension. Instead, they're planning on using practical effects and set design for most of it, which would make things a lot more believable. So even though Netflix is absolutely throwing a ton of cash at its flagship original series, it could all be worth it to see some insane visuals in season 4. Also, it's not like this is the most expensive series in the world. For that, you'd have to look at Amazon Prime Video, which is currently deep into the production of the Lord of the Rings series, The Rings of Power, and a single episode of that show costs almost $60 million to make. But then again, that is still Lord of the Rings, which is arguably one of the biggest entertainment IPs out there. Now in other news, That 70s Show cast will return for the Netflix spin-off show. We know that Netflix has been canceling a lot of shows lately, owing to a big drop in subscriber numbers and lost revenue, and when you cancel a beloved fan favorite show that's also cheap to produce like That 70s Show, while also simultaneously dropping a ton of cash on other projects, you're obviously painting a target on your back. However, it seems like the streaming service may have redeemed itself, as the spin-off series called That 90s Show is already in the works. The news that will please the fans the most about this development, though, is that all of the original cast from That 70s Show will come back to reprise their roles in this new series. So you can expect stars like Topher Grace, Ashton Kutcher, and Mila Kunis to all be present for your viewing pleasure. Consisting of 10 episodes, the show obviously takes place 2 decades after the original, but we're not sure whether it's a continuation of the story or a brand new take on the formula. All we know is that we are super excited to see these characters back on our screens. Next, Space Force won't be getting a 3rd season. Now, it really looks like Netflix has found themselves in a tight spot as they pick and choose between which shows to revive and which ones to cancel. And if you've been a fan of Steve Carell's Space Force for the past couple of seasons, then you're out of luck, as that show has been put on the chopping block. However, unlike some other shows that Netflix has canceled over the past year or so, this probably won't get much of a passionate response from the audience. After all, the first season, despite all of its hype, was really disappointing, and the second season, well, that just kinda came and went without anyone really caring about it. Fallout series set to begin filming in June. Fallout is without a doubt one of the most beloved video game franchises out there, and when Bethesda Game Studios announced that it would be partnering up with Amazon Prime Video to bring the post-apocalyptic series to our TV screens, it was a pretty big deal. However, ever since that initial announcement, fans have been aching to hear about any updates for the show, with nothing but radio silence coming from those behind it. Thankfully, it seems like we're finally geared up and ready to step into the radioactive wasteland of Fallout, as the series has been approved for filming in June. Handled by Kilter Films, which is the team behind HBO's Westworld, the production of this show is set to begin in New York under the codename Hondo. Now, this codename could mean anything, but our guess is that it refers to the city in Texas, right outside San Antonio. So Fallout could potentially take place in Texas. Of course, this is not the only Bethesda IP that's in the works, as we've already gotten confirmation of an Elder Scrolls series as well. And as we continue to ramp up towards higher quality video game adaptations, we're surely going to get to a point where these shows can rival the biggest original TV shows. After all, modern video games have some incredible stories and worlds that should translate well to the television medium as well. That's a wrap for this video. Which video game TV adaptation excites you the most? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.